A dangerous weather setup is taking place right now across parts of the United States. Today, severe weather slams parts of the Midwest and in the plains, bringing damaging winds, hail, and maybe even a couple of tornadoes. Tomorrow, this setup takes aim at parts of the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes region. In today's video, I'll break down what you need to know about the weather over the next few weeks, so let's get you right into the forecast. It's Tuesday, August 25th, 2026, and this is our Storm Prediction Center severe weather outlook for today. You can see that we do have a slight risk up here in the Midwest, and we got another slight risk out there in parts of the mid to southern plains. We do have a threat for a few tornadoes out here in parts of the Midwest today, mainly out here in northwestern Wisconsin and northeastern Minnesota. We do have a 2% tornado risk in these areas. I'm not too concerned about it, but a few brief tornadoes will be a possibility. Duluth, you guys are included in this, and some of the other areas out here. So definitely make sure you're staying prepared if you're in these areas, and have multiple ways to receive weather alerts. Damaging winds will be the main concern across these areas, with a 15% wind risk across parts of the southern plains and another one up there in parts of the Midwest. If you see these hatched lines out here in the southern plains, this means that we could be seeing 75-mile-per-hour plus winds, which are pretty significant. So we could see some significant winds out here in the southern plains with the stronger storms that have sufficient instability. So we'll have to watch this closely if you're in these regions. I definitely recommend to strap down unsecured objects so they don't fly away today, so you're prepared for later. We're also going to have a threat for some hail today. You can see some large hail in some of these areas today out here in the southern and mid-plains, and then out here in the Midwest. I do recommend to park your car in the garage, especially if you're in those yellow highlight areas today, as we could be seeing some pretty decently severe hail. As we get into tomorrow, it is expected to be a little bit more significant across parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes region, and even down there into parts of the plains. We do have a 5% tornado risk for tomorrow across northern Indiana, northwestern Ohio, and southwestern Michigan. So if you're in that 5% tornado risk, we do have a slightly more elevated potential for tornadoes. We do have a 2% tornado risk that surrounds that, where we can see a few isolated brief tornadoes inside of that 2%. So if you're out there in Fort Wayne, Chicago, that's kind of where the main tornado threat will be tomorrow. But we could also see a few tornadoes as far up as Grand Rapids and Detroit, and even up there towards Alpena tomorrow. So definitely have multiple ways to receive weather alerts tomorrow. The storms are going to develop mainly from parts of the afternoon into the evening, and some could continue into the overnight hours. So have multiple ways to receive weather alerts tomorrow if you're out in these regions, as tornadoes will be possible. Damaging winds will also be a possibility in these regions in excess of 60 to 70 miles per hour. If we go ahead and look at the plains, you can see that we do have an intensity 1 risk out there. We could be seeing some winds up to 75 miles per hour or more. So that's hurricane force in the plains tomorrow. So make sure you're staying prepared for that, especially if you're in those yellow 15% wind risks, as that's where the main wind threat will take place tomorrow. We could also see some hail tomorrow, including hail getting up to around hen egg size in the plains around Denver, and then hail anywhere from around quarter size to maybe up to hen egg size out there in the Midwest. So make sure you be prepared for that, and make sure you're parking your car in the garage so that it doesn't get damaged by hail tomorrow. And on Thursday, it should start calming down a little bit more as this whole system starts to move farther east. And then we'll have a new system come in the plains, and that will bring a few isolated severe storms around Denver, Colorado again. And then we could also see a few isolated severe storms in the northeast. That's pretty much driving a lot of the severe weather. So if you're out in these regions, definitely make sure you're staying prepared. And I'll keep you guys updated. Right now, we don't have too much details on what will happen, but we do have potential for some severe weather on Thursday. So definitely be prepared for that. Storms will develop later today out here in the plains along a warm front. These storms will develop this evening into the overnight hours, producing a potential for strong winds that up to 75 miles per hour or potentially greater, as well as a potential for some hail. The main tornado threat will stay a little bit farther north in this area, so I wouldn't really worry about tornadoes as far south. And definitely make sure to park your car in the garage. Denver, Colorado Springs, you guys are first in line for these severe storms. They should start moving farther eastward towards Wichita. They should start dying out around Wichita into early morning hours of tomorrow. So definitely make sure you're staying prepared if you're in these areas. To go ahead and take a look at our convective available potential energy here. We do have storm fuel up to around 3,000 joules per kilogram in some of these areas, which I know some of you guys don't really know about this, but this is pretty much like the fuel for the storm. This is convective available potential energy, and the more you have of that fuel, the better the storms can be more severe. So we'll have to watch that closely. And if this is plenty, 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram, that's plenty for storms. It's way more than you need. You can have 2,000 joules per kilogram and still get some severe storms, even 1,000. So we'll have to watch this closely if you're in these regions, as we could be seeing a pretty big severe weather setup taking place out here. Now, storms farther up north will start to fire this evening out here. We're going to have some rain showers push through before the main storms. See, around 8 p.m. we should get some storms to really start to get going out here across parts of the Midwest. These storms should produce some hail, some damaging winds, maybe an isolated tornado if we can get any storms to interact with enhanced low-level shear in these regions. So we're going to have to watch this closely. We'll have a few scattered severe storms pop up. If you're on Duluth, I'd be watching around 7 p.m. for the storms to arrive. It could change a little bit. And they should not be too severe by the time they get to Marquette. The Storm Prediction Center is not really expecting them to be severe as they get to Marquette, but it's something to keep an eye on, because that's when it gets into overnight hours and we'll start to get decreasing instability in these regions. So we'll have to watch this closely. Now, this is pretty much our fuel for tornadoes here. Not really, but it's kind of like the spin in the atmosphere. You can see that we do have a decent amount of spin in the atmosphere in these regions to contribute to a few tornadoes, mainly in this region, this area, that I'd be watching for the bigger tornado potential for today. This is where kind of most of our atmospheric spin will be. So we'll have to watch that closely here. If we do get tornadoes, they'll likely be very quick hitting and brief tornadoes, but you do not want to be the one that gets impacted by these, so definitely it's better to be safe than sorry. Our significant tornado parameter values are like very low today. I'm not really expecting anything too crazy in terms of tornadoes in these regions. They're kind of like around a 1 or like 2, but yeah, not really anything too crazy is probably going to be going on out here in terms of tornadoes. Still something to keep an eye on though, so have multiple ways to receive weather alerts. As we get into tomorrow, you can see that we're going to get some storms to form out here in parts of the Ohio Valley, Midwest. You can see that these storms are likely to produce the potential for damaging winds, hail, and a couple of tornadoes out here. While to watch this closely, storms will get going in parts of the early to mid-evening hours, and then they'll kind of push farther eastward into the overnight hours. These storms will produce a potential for tornadoes with a more elevated tornado threat across northern Indiana and northwestern Ohio. That's kind of where the main tornado threat will be tomorrow, but we could see a few tornadoes extending all the way to Alpena, Michigan tomorrow. So make sure to be prepared for that. If you're out there in Lansing, if you want to know like the time of when the storms arrive, just look at the top left. You can see that's where the time is. And then these storms should start dying out the farther east they go as they gradually weaken into the overnight hours. By the time they get to Columbus, they will probably not be severe by the time they get there. But yeah, these storms could also lead to maybe some flooding in some of these regions for the areas that get the training storms. So that's something to keep an eye on. The flooding chances out here are going to be very low. Another thing that these storms have is a ton of moisture. I didn't talk about that with some of the other areas, but you can see that we do have a ton of moisture in these areas tomorrow, which is an ingredient that you need for some of these storms. We have a lot of it getting sucked up from the Gulf into the United States. So we're going to watch this closely here. And with all that moisture overlapping with all the other ingredients, you can see that we're going to have a decent amount of instability in these areas. That's going to be sufficient for these storms in these regions. And you can see that if any storm that we get going, especially out here in northern Indiana and parts of eastern Illinois, it will have a decent potential to become severe and produce a potential for damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes. So we'll have to watch that closely. The reason why I'm not expecting the storms to be severe by the time they get to Columbus is because we're going to have decreasing instability through the overnight hours as the sun is not really going to be baking these areas, which kind of makes instability build up. This particular future radar run, this HRRR run, does not have a big tornado threat setting up tomorrow in these regions. But just because of this one run doesn't mean we're not going to see tornadoes. You can see that we still do have a little bit of spin out here. But we could see a downgrade with our tornado threat tomorrow if some of these models continue showing maybe a lower tornado threat. But just keep staying prepared for a few tornadoes, because no matter what happens, there's still going to be a potential for tornadoes. The hazardous heat is not even close to being done yet out here. You can see that we still have hazardous heat that's going to be continuing to slam the southern plains, and this is going to be very dangerous. Temperatures could be reaching up to the hundreds out here. So that's going to be a very dangerous potential for people in cars. If you leave anybody in a vehicle, the temperatures can climb very fast. So if you're in these regions, especially around Houston, Dallas, Texas, even up towards Oklahoma City over the next few days, it's going to be very hot. So it's definitely worth it to have your water bottle with you and stay hydrated if you're in these regions. And this is not going to be stopping anytime soon. There's no end to this major heat wave up ahead, it doesn't seem like. So it's going to be very warm, it's going to be very hot, and it's going to be dangerous. So definitely make sure you are staying prepared for this heat in these regions, as it's going to last all the way to early September. We did actually have some cooler temperatures that came down through the Great Lakes region over the next few days because of there's like a low pressure system in these regions. It brought a lot of nicer temperatures to the Great Lakes region because of a low pressure system out here. It sucked a lot of cooler air down from Canada. So yeah, it was pretty cool out here in the Great Lakes region. That should continue out here. So yeah, and it's gonna start warming up a little bit more, but you can see it's still gonna be a little bit cooler than usual. Mainly during the overnight hours. So, yeah, we had temperatures dropping down to parts of the 50s and even parts of the upper 40s. So, yeah, and it should start warming up here because of this low pressure system moving out. But there's an update on that. Now the fire weather is going to be farther west today out here. There's a different threat setting up. Now we have a elevated fire weather potential out here around Los Angeles, California. If you're in those regions, you guys could see some fire weather. So definitely make sure you stand prepared for that and don't be throwing your cigarette out of the window in these regions. You could see some fire weather farther north up here in southeastern Oregon, northwestern Nevada, and northeastern California. We can also see a few isolated dry thunderstorms out here in northern Idaho, western Montana, and northeastern Oregon, which could contribute to maybe a wildfire starting. As we get into tomorrow, the wildfire potential should stay in the same area, except the elevated potential will go a little bit farther north into Washington. So it's definitely make sure to stay prepared out in these regions. We got dry air, we got warm temperatures, and that's all you need, and some windy conditions. That's all you need for some fire weather. Start very easily. Rapid wildfire growth will happen if you start one. So definitely stay tuned to local officials and the National Weather Service for more updates on this potential for dangerous fire weather and maybe even potential upgrades to a critical risk in some of these areas. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather that we could be seeing farther into the future here. You can see that we're going to have some of these systems are going to move through. We're going to have this low pressure system up here in Canada. That's going to bring that severe weather potential in the Ohio Valley Midwest over the next few days. I'm watching another system to come into the Midwest around the 30th of August in these regions. We're going to have a low pressure system out here. Could see some severe weather out there in the northern plains. So we got still continuing severe weather that we're going to see across the United States, and don't think that that's going to come to an end. We could see a decent flood threat set up on the 1st of September out here in Ohio Valley. And as we get into the 2nd of September, it should be a potential for severe weather in parts of the Midwest and Northern Plains. Now, 2nd of September is kind of far away, so some stuff can change, but that's kind of what it's looking like right now. We'll have to keep an eye on it. And if we go ahead and take a look at the tropics here, we do actually have a potential for some tropical development out here in the Atlantic here. It's going to be a low chance, but we could see some development of a tropical system out here in the Atlantic. We do have a high chance for development near Praia. We do have a tropical disturbance out here. This is a 70% high chance of development. So we are likely going to be seeing some development out here with this storm, and that's actually probably not going to make any impacts on the United States, but it is worth keeping an eye on. It's probably just going to be a fish storm. It's probably just going to go farther up into the Atlantic. Could also see some development with this low pressure system out here in the Atlantic off the coast of the United States, actually getting kind of close to Newfoundland. This is a low chance of development as well. Well, it's a medium chance, but I think it should be a low chance. I do not think this one will develop. This will have to fight a lot of winds here for this one to develop. So, but yeah, if this does develop, it could bring some gusty winds to Newfoundland, and even if it doesn't develop, it could also bring some heavy rain, so be prepared for that. And that's pretty much all I got for you in today's video. Make sure to slap a like, subscribe, stay tuned to the channel as I'll keep you updated with the weather. If you have any suggestions or anything or anything you just pretty much want me to do, like maybe upgrade something, just comment down below in the video, and I'll respond to any and all comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Consider subscribing. Peace.